If you have an interest in horses and love learning more about horses, the horse industry, teaching, or even managing your own horse business, then you're in the right place. We would love you to join us on our mission, which is to improve the lives of horses around the world through the education of riders, handlers, and trainers. So get comfortable, listen in, and enjoy.
This has been another episode sponsored by Online Horse College. If you haven't had a look at the wide variety of equine-specific accredited courses, then go to onlinehorsecollege.com and I'll see you over there. Today's guest is Maxine Cummings. Maxine's a teacher and she's also a dressage judge, coach, trainer and competitor. She likes to teach the nervous riders to improve their riding skills. It could include going on, getting better dressage scores, doing a bit of jumping and some trail riding as well. And Maxine's a coach educator, so she helps bring on other equestrian coaches. How are you today, Maxine?
Very good, thanks, Glenys.
Now, Maxine, you know that we start with a favourite quote. So what's your favourite quote?
Probably a favourite quote I found very shortly after I had a bit of a serious riding accident, and that was, don't let fears get in the way of your dreams. I was getting a little bit fearful of getting back on, worried, that sort of thing, and saw it on a bumper sticker and thought, oh, yep, this is exactly what I need. And just the other day I saw another one that I think was really pertinent that Walt Disney had said, and he says, all your dreams can come true if you have the courage to pursue them. So I think that's something that I sort of go by as far as that's concerned.
Using these two quotes, do you teach them to your students?
I certainly do. In teaching, all sorts of teaching, I mean, a lot of it is really sort of trying to get into people's sort of mindset so that they can let go of some fears and allow themselves to actually get on and really enjoy what they're doing and not let that sort of consume their thoughts as far as that's concerned. So, yes, I do use that.
I'm just thinking about that bumper sticker you saw. You know, you saw it at the right moment. That bumper sticker might have been on thousands of cars in your past, but it was at that moment that you needed to have don't let fears.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, tell us about your first memories with horses or an early memory that stands out for you.
Well, as far as I know, I've always wanted to do horse stuff, and my family weren't really horsey at all, and the closest I could come was we'd have a little bit of a holiday in the country, and I was about 4 years old, and they had the old station horse there, and I got very upset with my father because he didn't know how to put the bridle on the horse, but we had, and so I kind of missed out on my ride on Old Trigger, sort of around the backyard through the clothes horse. So that was certainly a very happy memory. But then I sort of saved every penny that I could and bought my first horse, Peppy. And, you know, that was just absolutely fun. You know, no mobile phones, no nothing. You'd just get on your horse in the early morning and say, see you later, Mum. And the requirements were, let's get back before dark. And the horse would take you anywhere. You could go to the beach, you could go to the dam, you could go up the mountain and visit your friends. And, it was something that you could just go for miles and never a worry, never a care in the world, no fear about, you know, being bucked off, left in the wilderness, because there were certainly some places that we went that I don't think you'd ever be found to this very day. They're really just happy memories of those sorts of things. And then, of course, as I morphed from that, I went into some of the agricultural shows, and very much in those days there was no hack shows or anything of the like, and the agricultural shows were a real family day and just a great family fun day where you could sort of go and visit friends, which was great. So then from there I decided that I felt that I'd learnt enough from that, and so then my journey into the dressage scene sort of started from there, and of course I've been very passionate about that ever since, as far as that's concerned.
Did you do any jumping, Maxine? Because you teach a little bit of jumping, don't you?
I don't teach a lot of jumping, no. Very little, in fact. I certainly incorporate poles and grids into the dressage lessons that I have. Certainly it's an extremely useful tool, if not anything but, helping keep the horse a bit fresh for people. And a lot of the times the poles cause them to sort of refocus on going over the pole rather than, sometimes they just sort of, you say, ride a straight line and they worry about doing that. So you put a pole in the way and it refocuses them on getting over the pole, and then they're up the other end where they didn't think they would be, so to speak. So I certainly use poles and grids. Personally, I joined Pony Club when I was really quite old, and at that stage there was no jumping grading, and so I had a little 13-hand horse that was expected to sort of jump a metre, so I think I spent more time jumping over the jumps than the horse actually spent jumping the jumps. So while I've certainly done a little bit of low-level cross-country, that's it. I've certainly not gone into the big boys league as far as that's concerned.
What about coaching? Was that like a natural progression? Did you start to teach people before you decided you were going to be a coach, or there was an actual decision?
I always had inground into me a sort of a sense of community from my family, and I always wanted to sort of be able to help people. So right from, day dot, because as I said, I was a little bit older when I joined Pony Club, I was more than happy to sort of help people. So I ended up becoming a Pony Club coach and enjoyed doing that pretty much until I actually went off to university. And obviously when I was away at university, then it sort of waned a little bit as far as that's concerned. But I've always sort of been in a position to help people, and then as my children got older and my time sort of became freer, I was able to sort of concentrate on, I suppose, putting some formal credentials to what I'd actually been doing for many, many years. So it was really good as far as that was concerned. And of course, the coach pathway became, as that improved, it actually became achievable, which it really wasn't achievable in the early days because I was actually living in the country, and so access to coach educators was very, very difficult at that time unless you were able to sort of down tools and sort of head off somewhere to stay for an extended period at places like Heath Ryan's place. So so the new pathways certainly, I believe, are chunked into smaller goals that enable, most people to achieve the self-paced learning.
What about if someone wants to now become a coach, or not even become a coach, but just work with horses and have the ability to work with horses? They're passionate about horses. What else do they need to be able to have a career?
Pretty much they need a lot of patience, a lot of persistence, and a lot of practice. The beauty now, as opposed to when I was first starting out, is that there are opportunities and it is a viable career. It's certainly, when I first started out, I don't really know, unless you were a stockman or a jockey, you really didn't make a lot of money out of horses as far as that's concerned. But it's a viable career. And there's so many opportunities of overseas travel to get the education that's required. And, it's certainly a lot easier to be able to access it. And also, technology has certainly brought things closer for everybody as well, as far as that's concerned. But yes, you certainly need a lot of tenacity to sort of stick at it, because it's hard. It's hard physically, and it's hard mentally.
What do you think's the best thing about it, though, about working with horses?
Oh, it's an absolute passion. I think you have it. It's being able to work with an animal that is so unbelievably giving when you get it right. It's being outside amongst nature. Yeah, they're just an absolutely magnificent animal. They really are. It's just like art. It's poetry in motion. It's just a wonderful feeling that's really hard to capture from anything else. You're just working with a as I said, a beautiful, beautiful animal that is so willing to please so often.
Yep. Who's influenced you?
I've actually had many influences. Certainly in the early days, my mentor has been a woman whose name is Tina Bridge, an absolutely incredible horsewoman, very humble. She certainly doesn't sort of, market herself as far as that's concerned, but amazing woman and an unbelievable gift at being able to tell you what the horse was basically thinking, I suppose. And for me, I suppose probably the first horse whisperer, for want of a better word. She would break in 90 horses a year. She was a very small woman, so obviously it wasn't about brute force as far as that was concerned. But being a woman in a game that really is still largely male-dominated in many areas, she really didn't get great horses to start with. Mostly the horses she would get would be because the men had given up on them. So she taught me so much about horsemanship, about keeping it simple. Even today, I would contact her about my, certain things. What do you think about this and that type of thing? But yeah, as far as young horse issues, she's just brilliant. Then from there, I sort of I had a little horse that I had bred, and he was just such a clever little horse, and I wanted a little bit more. And so Mark Kittle actually then sort of helped me sort of progress this little horse that certainly wasn't bred to be an FEI horse into a little Grand Prix horse. And so, I really valued the work that he helped me with as far as that's concerned. And then who can sort of not be inspired by the absolute harmonious picture that Charlotte de Girenne has done with Allegro? I mean, It's just a magnificent picture. And then you've got to be also inspired by some of our para-riders. I remember a particular time when I was feeling a little bit sort of despondent in my riding, watching Danielle Waymark. And I just sort of thought, well, she had the most amazing core strength. And I thought, what am I complaining about, So some of those riders have unbelievably inspirational stories that enable you to sort of think, I've really got nothing to complain about, just get on with it. So, yeah, there's certainly been quite a few, but certainly Tina is still my who mentored me the most as far as that's concerned.
Yeah. So Tina taught you to keep it simple. Tell us about an incident or, just a time where you've really learnt something else from her.
I suppose I would go to and did grab lessons at every opportunity, but didn't have a lot of money, so they were very fragmented. And so you would sort of hear things like, left leg, right rein here, left rein here, and keep to the contact and, get that impulsion going. And they were words that I kind of thought that I knew, but really didn't. Whereas Tina would basically just sort of say, pull the right rein, kick with the left leg. And just broke it down into more manageable pieces that just made it a little bit simpler, and above all, forward. When everything is forgotten, kick the horse forward and you will get, most of your mistakes will disappear if the horse is forward.
Yeah. Wait, can you hear anything? No? That's because we're waiting for someone with a good quality horse product to be advertised here. If that's you, then contact us, horsechats@horsechats.com, and we'll send you the details. Thanks. What about horses?
I've been absolutely blessed in having and still own a beautiful little Palomino part-bred Welsh that I initially bred for my daughter. Mm-hmm. Lucky for me, when I went to sell him, the woman who was going to buy him had a medical incident and didn't buy him. And he just was so trainable. He was never ever bred to be a Grand Prix dressage horse in any way, shape or form, but he was just so willing and so keen, and every little step that I took with him, I would sort of think, oh, let's have a bit of a dabble with lateral work, shoulder in. Oh, gee, he can do that, let's ramp it up a little bit and do travers, renvers. He can do that. Oh, my goodness, let's have a go at one flying change. And, he would sort of go, yep, I can do that. And, okay, let's sort of ramp it up now to 15. And, essentially he just, every little goal that I really didn't ever believe would be achievable, he just did it. And so he certainly still does have a special place in my heart. And, of course, the very first horse that I bought, of course, because the first horse that I bought really was, I had to sort of save every single penny to actually buy my first little horse, Peppy. And, I didn't have any help from my parents. They lived in middle suburbia and horses weren't sort of on their radar as far as that was concerned. So she was a special one. And the other really special one that I had was thoroughbred mare that I bought as a weanling. And she took me to my first royal show. And again, when I first got her, if you had told me that I would be able to achieve, taking her to a royal and competing at a royal, I would have sort of thought, oh, no, that goal's really not achievable. I couldn't do that. So I have been really lucky to have had a few really special ones. I mean, I've had quite a lot of horses over the years, but certainly those ones are very, very special horses to me. And, there were horses that weren't sold. And as I said, Ricky is family, so he won't be sold either.
Yep. What about your proudest moment? What do you think that was?
Well, I sort of alluded to some of it. Firstly, buying my first horse, going to a royal. But one of the really, really proud moments, of course, was my first Grand Prix dressage test. Okay, if I really look back at it in hindsight and as I put my judging hat on, it probably wasn't really very amazing, but, I thought it was at the time. But probably where I really, really was absolutely thrilled was when they had the international riders at the Sydney CDI, and they asked for loan horses. And I sort of was quite happy because I was fairly confident that my horse was, reasonably bomb-proof as far as that's concerned. So for a number of years I actually lent him to the international riders, and the very first time that he went, he was actually the Japanese rider, Toshio Taguchi from Japan, actually rode him into second place. Now, second place might not sound amazing, but when you consider that it was second place behind Rosie Ryan and all the horses that were there were serious Grand Prix horses, and my little horse wasn't actually, he was just a little pony, but, he worked his heart out for a strange rider, and I thought, how proud is that? I've bred this horse, I've trained this horse, and somebody who's had 10 minutes riding him has been able to, just really show off the training that I'd put into him. So I was immensely proud, and even as I sit here, I still sort of look at the prizes that he got from that CDI. So, but he then went on for all the rest of the time that they had the international riders. I lent him every year, but then the CDI decided not to do that anymore. I think they found it very, very difficult to get the horses, and that's certainly understandable. But I had a lot of fun with that, sort of meeting people from other countries and hearing how dressage works in their country. And, it really was great fun, really enjoyed it as far as that's concerned. yes, and I'm still looking forward to going to the Sydney CDI, which is on in a couple of weeks, just even if it's only just to watch. But yeah, it's a lot of fun as well.
Thinking about, having a Grand Prix pony, you told me about how trainable he was and all the good times. What was the biggest challenge that you found? Did you find that you were, the judges sort of almost discounted you because he was just small, or, did you have other challenges because he was small or not?
Probably the biggest challenge was that he didn't really have the scope of paces.
Yep, like the movement.
Yeah, he didn't have the movement. So even when he was at his absolute best, really trying his heart out, his scores weren't amazing. They were acceptable, but weren't amazing. And I suppose the other thing, I was actually very, very lucky in that the rules have since changed, and he would not actually have been allowed to even compete FEI now because of the fact that the quality of the horses that we have in Australia is just made a huge paradigm shift. I mean, the horses that we have are, equal to anything that we've got worldwide now. I mean, we've got access to, artificial insemination. The breeding is unbelievably terrific. So that was certainly a little bit of a challenge as far as that's concerned. But as far as challenging horses are concerned, my current younger one is more challenging than he actually was.
Yep.
And it's probably not something I really wanted in the twilight years of my actual competing. But anyway, persistence has paid off, and she is actually turning a bit of a corner at the moment. So things are really looking very positive at the present time, which is terrific.
Good. Just thinking about the riders that you teach, because you said you teach a few nervous riders. What sort of exercises do you give your nervous riders?
It's probably not necessarily exercises as such. It's really just trying to chunk down the work to an achievable goal. And for some people, that can be as simple as just getting on and walking one circle and getting off. And the next day, getting on and walking 2 circles and getting off. That's really how nervous some of my riders have been as far as that's concerned. And it's just such a joy when, you've eventually convinced them that, okay, we can trot now, and yes, we can trot up at Scary Corner now, and yes, we've been trotting for quite a while now, and why don't we just canter? And, it's really just piecing it into very, very, very small achievable parts so that they can gain the confidence and move forward. And as I said, I've had some that were so nervous like that are now competing and looking at competing, at novice, whereas, a couple of years ago, if you'd told them that they'd even so much as sort of ride out of the arena, they would have just about had a heart attack. But, they're really enjoying what they're doing, and it's really about small steps. I mean, if someone had said to me when I first started riding that A, I would end up at a Royal, and B, I would be able to actually ride Grand Prix, I would have just sort of thought, oh, no, that's just absolutely not achievable. But if you just sort of really break it into much smaller steps, the days, years and months go by and you sort of think, oh, wow, I've got there. Wow, I've done it. Wow, what's next? So, that's probably more how I go at, really coercing and helping them get over the mindset of it.
Yep. No, that's good.
If you're an equestrian coach or a horse riding instructor, or even if you aspire to be one, have a look at the free video series for horse riding instructors on the Horse Chats website. Go there now, have a look, horsechats.com.
What about books, Maxine? Have you got a book that you could recommend to our listeners?
Couple of books, really. my mentor, Tina Bridge, wrote a book called Bridging the Gap from Wild to Mild. And for me, it's just an excellent Bible if you're dealing with any young horse issues, you know, from the horse basically from breaking in to being able to ride it. From there, another book that I got hold of very early in the piece was Sally Swift's Centred Riding. As a child, I rode lots. I balanced actually pretty well on a horse, but it wasn't until I decided to start this dressage thing that I realised that, okay, I've balanced really well, but I really, really am not riding. I only think I am. And so Sally Swift's book really enabled me to get that visual perspective of, you know, like, how much pressure do you need on the reins? Oh, okay, you need the amount of pressure that holding a little canary in your hand is like. You know, what's it like to sort of have your joints sort of quite supple and, you know, where should your shoulders align, that sort of thing. And so the imagery that she puts within that book enabled me to sort of picture where my body should be and the control that's needed for your body to be able to actually, you know, really influence the horse and actually ride it well, which you really don't begin to do until you start to sort of really enjoy, you know, taking a horse through the training levels of the dressage game.
Yep. And remember, you can find all the books recommended by our guests at horsechats.com/books. You can have a look at the guest page for the individual book they recommended, or just look at the recommended books by order of popularity at horsechats.com/books. What about your philosophy? You know, your overall philosophy with horses and training horses, teaching. Maxine, what would you say is your philosophy with horses?
Probably, as I've sort of said before, you know, big goals are actually achievable if you just start with the first step. And, you know, certainly when most people come to me sort of riding, very few of them sort of say, oh, look, you know, I want to compete or I want to do, you know, X, Y, Z with a horse. But very shortly they're, you know, looking at new goals, new bits, and because as a coach, you scaffold it in an achievable way. Those big goals that they never even visualised or envisaged are really happening for them. And as a coach, I think that's probably one of the most rewarding things is to be able to share in that journey of them achieving goals that probably never even occurred to them.
Yep, that's good. Okay, Maxine, how can people contact you?
Probably the best way, as a coach, I'm on the EA website, and as a judge, I'm also on the EA website. So it has my email address, my landline phone number, which is the best way to contact me because mobile service is a little bit erratic where I live, and my mobile number there is there. Also, I have a Maxine Cummings Facebook page, which predominantly just has some of the things that I'm doing with horses and judging and that sort of thing on it. So people are, and it's an open page, it's not private, so people are more than welcome to message me through that page as far as that's concerned.
The other thing too, Maxine, it'll be on horsechats.com/Maxine Cummings, or just go to horsechats.com, search for Maxine or search for Cummings, and you'll find contact details at the bottom of your page. Yeah, so then that way people can contact you. Yeah. So, yeah, Maxine, thanks for talking to us today. Been very good.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I feel quite sort of humble amongst all the other people that you've interviewed. It's been wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah. Look, I'm sure you've got a message to contribute as well. I'm sure people will enjoy the interview and get some education out of it, so thanks. Now, if you're still there, you probably know that I'm absolutely passionate about education within the horse industry. That's why I host this podcast. My other venture is Online Horse College. Have a look now at onlinehorsecollege.com and I'll see you over there.
Remember that our comments and instructions are general in nature and do not take into consideration your individual horses or your individual ability and circumstances. If you enjoyed this podcast, then please leave your comment below.